This case came to me as a call from my doctor's office. The mother of the child actually took the child into the doctor's office. She had concerns over what she had observed and was told by the child. The child knew the perpetrator. The mother was in a relationship with the perpetrator.
In Emilia's case, her disclosure was about an event that happened in the acute time frame, in that 120 hours. So that actually led her to get an acute evaluation, which included the medical, but it also included the forensic evidence collection. That information does then go to the rest of the child protection team.
The initial part of the investigation started with law enforcement because they were called first, but they knew immediately that there were issues that were specific to Child Protective Services and the safety of this child, so they called them.
What we do, especially for a case of sexual abuse, is that we get involved, and if the child makes an outcry and says somebody touched them inappropriately, we actually at that point generally shut down that conversation. The idea behind it is that this is a very sensitive subject, and we don't want the children to have to tell this story to more than one or two people at the very most. And that's when we get the ball in motion to get in touch with the Center for Child Protection.
Emilia first came to the center due to allegations of sexual abuse. I first met her here in the child's playroom before I did a forensic interview with her. I had a basic understanding of what had happened beforehand, in that her mom had caught the perpetrator and the child in the act of something. I didn't have any preconceived notion necessarily that anything more had happened or not. But upon further questioning, she definitely provided more information about other abuse incidents that had taken place and things that were more severe. She had a physical manifestation throughout the entire interview, in that she was literally chewing at her fingers, to a point where actually twice in the interview I stopped to say, I don't want you to hurt yourself, because I could literally see that she was bleeding. Undoubtedly, there was at least 3 incidents of abuse. But there was likely very much more than that based on the words she used. Like, it happened a lot. It happened a lot of times. And there actually was a whole nother component to this particular case too, because he recorded a lot of this also. She talked very specifically about how there was cameras involved. So there's physical evidence to show the abuse that took place.
That information assisted us in knowing what to look for when we went to conduct a search of the house. There were photographs that showed a particular piece of jewelry that the perpetrator was wearing, and we were able to get a definite link between that jewelry back to the perpetrator without any doubt.
We had some photographic evidence, a little bit of DNA evidence, but again, that would have just established lesser counts. In order to get that top count of continuous sexual abuse of a child, we needed Emilia to be able to testify.
Undoubtedly, she was extremely brave throughout this entire process. In order to provide that information to me, somebody, a complete stranger, somebody that she didn't know. But there's such an amount of time between the forensic interview and when they would have to go to testify that things can change.
We get 2 years down the road, and we're closer to having this case go forward and go to trial, and reach out to Mom and Emilia and have them come in to start doing their prep. And we realized that the things that were actually a little bit more comfortable for her to talk about in the immediate sense are now terrifying for her.
We had to get Emilia to a place where she could walk into a courtroom, sit up on the stand with a judge beside her, a court reporter, an armed bailiff, a gallery full of people, and most importantly, her perpetrator sitting 15 feet away from her. She had to go into that environment and talk about the most traumatic things that had ever happened to her by a guy that she called Dad. And she, at that point in time, was not even willing to tell 2 female prosecutors in a playroom at the district attorney's office what had happened to her. In fact, she hid under the table when I first met her, which was 3 days before the trial.
So that prosecutor picked up the phone and called Miriam and said, here's the problem that we have. Do you think Sidney could help us solve it?
They knew that we had a therapy dog, Sidney. And I think that out of, to be honest, desperation, they called and they said, hey, we have this kid, can you bring the dog? She could find anybody in the room who needed something and could feel their fear, I think. And so we walked in the room and she immediately went under the table with this child.
She hugged Sidney and laid on Sidney, and Sidney just kind of laid there and took it all in stride and was just very calming.
So they said to her, well, if you can't tell us, can you tell Sidney? And she lifted my girl's ear up and, she was able to let it out. The deepest, darkest secret that she's ever had. And eventually she was able to talk to them.
A therapy dog had never been allowed in a courtroom before in this kind of a setting. It was brand new, and I think that was critical to what happened in court that day. She had not seen the defendant, the perpetrator, since the day she reported the crime. And there he was, sitting 15 feet away from her.
She put her feet on Sidney's back. And that child sat there and talked about what happened.
She was able to say that the abuse had been going on for a long period of time. She was able to talk about the things Daddy did to her. The courage it took for her to speak up was enormous. And I think Sidney played a big role in that. Despite the fact that the defendant had no prior criminal history, they sentenced him to 60 years in prison. He's going to do probably every day of that time. So that's essentially a life sentence.
This defendant was convicted, but that's not what this child will remember. What they hold on to is that they sat in there and faced this person and told what happened. You just did the hardest thing you'll ever have to do in your whole life.
We had a child who was able to do what she needed to do, but it was facilitated every step of the way by some member of this team.
The efforts of the child protection team, which consists of law enforcement, CPS, Dale Children's Hospital, the Center for Child Protection, and the District Attorney's Office, their efforts make our community safer and protect our children.
I think that it's important to tell Emilia's story because she's not the only one. We see 5 other kids every day, 13 to 1,500 kids every year. Sexual abuse happens everywhere. And the truth is that abuser is often, 90% of the time, someone that the child knows.
We have to be a village for all of these children because sometimes the people closest to them are not willing to be, are not able to be, and are scared to be.
The bottom line is that the center is a safe harbor. If we have the capacity to provide that, I think we should. I think we owe it to them.